exactly. So, yeah. So, what has the rise of Sinn Féin done to politics in the South? Is there a genuine political transformation taking place?
Listen, I don't think it is as astonishing as you make it out to be, Port. Like, you know, first of all, nothing is inevitable in politics, and except I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I know nothing is inevitable. And like politics in Southern Ireland is no different from other places around the world. We've had a series of, I suppose, traumatic events in terms of financial crisis 10 years ago, issues that have happened since then, and now we're into a pandemic. Sinn Féin haven't been in government in the South. They've benefited from that. Politics has become much more competitive in Ireland and in other countries. It used to be there was just 2.5 parties in Southern Ireland. Now there's a whole variety of parties. And, you know, people are more selective and allegiances change around. So all I would say to you is, what's the reason for Sinn Féin's rise? I suppose the reason for their rise is because first of all, they stopped advocating violence. It was a big move that they made. And once they did that, they opened themselves up to much broader levels of support. So that's the first thing that they did. And second, they haven't been in government in the South. And like the main other parties, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, the Greens, have all been in government in the South. And Sinn Féin is now one party that hasn't. And they inevitably will be in government. And I suspect after that, that they'll find themselves in a not dissimilar position to other parties who have been in government.
Could you tell me a little about the debate that went on in Fianna Fáil? Micheál Martin had a moral question regarding forming a coalition with Sinn Féin. And now I think pretty recently, majority of Fianna Fáil members have said they're ready to go into a government with Sinn Féin. What was the nature of Martin's objection, and how has the party kind of moved its position since then?
Well, first of all, every party's moved its position. Like in 2016, Sinn Féin refused to just go into talks with Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, and that was their position prior to that completely. And they realised after the 2016 election that was a tactical error on their part to rule out going.
They refused to go into government with either Fianna Fáil
or Fine Gael because they did not want to be part of these two establishment orthodox parties. They didn't want to put either of them back in government. And they realised after the election in 2016, and in a way sort of, you know, that made things easier for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael because Sinn Féin didn't want to talk to us, so we didn't have to deal with the issue as to why we wouldn't talk to them. But they made that tactical decision in 2016 and it worked out badly for them. In the aftermath of the election in February 2016, you know, other parties were trying to put together a government and Sinn Féin went off and just didn't participate. And they obviously realised if they continue that policy for the next election, that people were going to say, well, what's the point of voting for Sinn Féin? So they're not going to even talk to the parties. So they changed their decision prior to the 2020 election. Like, there is for other parties going into government with Sinn Féin in light of what happened in the not too distant past. Okay, so it's not like some irrational anti-democratic decision espoused by Micheál Martin that, God, you know, how could anyone not talk to another party? Sinn Féin were a different political party to other political parties. You know, back in the 1980s and in the 1990s, Fianna Fáil did not support, if they opposed somebody politically, they didn't think it was valid to execute them, to be frank with you. So that has changed now, and I commend Sinn Féin for that. And, you know, obviously politics in the South has altered as a result of Sinn Féin becoming more competitive down here as well. Like Sinn Féin attacked Fianna Fáil on the basis that corrupt political party can't be trusted. So like there is a combative political narrative there between all political parties. But in terms of the last election, like my own view was that we didn't have an opportunity. It wasn't really discussed. I think it worked out for us in 2016. We said we wouldn't go in with Fine Gael and Sinn Féin in 2016, and we didn't. And then in 2020, we said the same thing again, and there was no way that was going to work. So, like, my own assessment is we were too definitive. I think Sinn Féin TD is as legitimate as a Fianna Fáil TD. And my own view in the future is I don't talk about other parties, but I think my view, and I don't represent everyone in Fianna Fáil Park, but my view would be that come the next election, Fianna Fáil should contest it on its own record, on its manifesto, and then afterwards we should be open to discussing going into government with any compatible party that has compatible policies.
Yeah, the last poll had Fianna Fáil down, I think, you know better than I, at 14%.
Yeah.
Below the independents. Not a good situation. Is Sinn Féin eating into Fianna Fáil's vote?
Eating into some of it, and I'd say maybe Fine Gael is eating into some of it as well. But, it's all I can say to you is nothing is inevitable in politics. Like, the narrative that is presented is that Fianna Fáil is caught between Sinn Féin on its left, Fine Gael on its right, and it's going to be cannibalised from both ends. There's another way of looking at it, which is that people in Ireland want a centre-ground, centre-left national party with which they feel comfortable. Not that long ago, since 40% of people voted for Fianna Fáil. So there are opportunities for Fianna Fáil there if we present our policies correctly and if we identify for the public what it is we stand for.
Now, if Sinn Féin in government would shift the discussion on unity to a different level, one, it's called for a border poll, and it would surely replace the shared island unit with something a unification unit, or establish a department of unification. Is it like, would that serve as a catalyst in any way to jumpstart things we may perhaps have thought wouldn't arise for another 10 years or so?
Well, I don't know is the answer to that, but like, one thing I do know is that if this is left, and this is not me making a critical comment about Sinn Féin, but if this is left exclusively to Sinn Féin to do the running on the reunification of this island, well, I'm fearful it will not succeed. Because, again, I don't make political points, but I can say it to you, like, one of the biggest obstacles to reunification is the campaign of violence that was carried out by the Provisional IRA. Like, we would be in a much better position in trying to achieve reunification if we didn't have that. It's a deciding factor for a lot of unionist people in Northern Ireland who will not engage rationally with the topic, but will say, listen, I'm not going there because of what happened in the past. So, listen, if Sinn Féin get into government, I don't know what they will do. It's entirely a matter for them. Maybe they'll get huge power in Ireland and they'll be able to steer us peacefully through to reunification. I would just be careful about that, though. That's not my assessment as to how reunification will best be achieved. Like, if you look at the successes that have happened in diplomacy in Ireland in the past 30 years, the Good Friday Agreement was the best one. It was steered by the centre ground, non-violent republicanism of Fianna Fáil, the SDLP, and we brought people along with us. So, that's why I think Fianna Fáil is necessary.
In what sense is Sinn Féin a different type of political party in the Oireachtas?
Did I say that?
That is it began as a series of articles in the Irish Times last March on how Sinn Féin works. That how would I put it? That it has the Ard Comhairle, or a subgroup of the Ard Comhairle, kind of makes policy decisions, and those policy decisions